and welcome to episode number 37 of the weekly Google Cloud Platform podcast. I am Francesc and Mark, and I'm here with my colleague Mark Mandel. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Francesc. How you doing?
Very good. Happy to have Cutter back for one more week.
Just one episode. I'd like you to be like, yeah, I'm a little down today. I'm a little sad.
I'm just a very happy person in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to have Cutter to keep on telling us about Kubernetes 1.3, but specifically about the new things that are coming to Google Container Engine. Container written with a K, so GKE.
Yeah. So we got a whole bunch of new features and new stuff above and beyond what already came with 1.3 in Kubernetes. So we're going to have a chat about that. And there's some pretty cool stuff in there.
Yeah, and also during the interview, we will also mention like how do you get started with Kubernetes? What are the best ways to learn the basics and etc. So regardless of if you're an expert that wants to know more about the latest things, or if you want to really learn the basics, I think this interview will be very good for you.
Absolutely.
And then at the end, we will have a question of the week. And for the second, maybe third, I don't count anymore, week in a row, the question will be on Kubernetes.
Yeah, well, it's such an interesting topic. I just can't avoid it.
I know. No, people keep on asking questions about Kubernetes, which is great. Very happy to answer all of those. And I keep on learning by answering them. So yay.
Yeah, so we're going to have a little chat about how we do local development with Kubernetes.
Yep. But before that, we're going to start with the cool thing of the week. And the cool thing of the week this week comes from you. And it comes clearly from you because it involves your favorite product, which is, what is the name again?
Deployment Manager.
Deployment Manager, Google Cloud Deployment Manager. And it is related to MongoDB. So the question is, okay, so I want to run MongoDB on Google Cloud Platform.
Yep.
What is the easiest / best way to get started?
So this is actually quite interesting. So there are a few ways that you could create MongoDB on Google Cloud Platform. Obviously, you could fire up your Compute Engine instances and sort of manually install it, do it that way. Not necessarily a difficult way to do it. We have Google Cloud Launcher to quickly create and sort of test a MongoDB replica set. That works, but to a degree, like it's a little harder to manage once it's already up. Like if you want to upgrade it, it becomes a little bit more difficult. It's not like that. However, what we have, and there's a blog post that comes along with this that is on Google Cloud Platform's blog, that provisions and installs MongoDB Cloud Manager, which is a MongoDB tool for running a replica set of MongoDB in the cloud. But we use Cloud Deployment Manager templates to basically bootstrap that and keep that up and running and get that up and started. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get almost, sort of the speed and simplicity of using, say, like Cloud Launcher. But, now you've got something that's managed by MongoDB. It's hooked into their services. And then, so if you want to run MongoDB in the cloud, it seems like a really nice way to do it at production and at scale.
Cool. That sounds very cool. And yeah, the blog post will be linked from the show notes as always. Great. So I think it is time to go back to our long interview with Cutter Morgan. So he keeps on letting us know more about GKE 1.3.
Absolutely. I don't think we've talked to him in a long time.
Let's go for that. So since we enjoyed last week so much talking to Cutter Morgan, we're back again to talk more about Kubernetes and GKE. Hi, Cutter. How are you doing?
Doing well, Francis.
Long time no see.
It feels like I never left.
Yeah. Yeah, so for those that didn't listen to the previous episode, we discussed a little bit about all the new things that come with Kubernetes 1.3. And one of those things was like more nodes and like bigger things and all of those things. And it was all related to just like Kubernetes in the wild. You can run whatever you want to run it on GCE, GKE, but also on Amazon or wherever you want to run it. Today, we're going to be talking more specifically about GKE. So what is there? The first question could be, is Kubernetes 1.3 available on GKE?
Yep. I just updated all my clusters last night so I can test out all the new features. It's available for everybody. If you don't know, GKE is Google Container Engine. That's a C, which is weird because they had the name taken. But it's a hosted version of Kubernetes. So they're basically host a master for you on Google Compute instances. You don't get charged for that, and you just get charged for compute instances you use.
Cool. So other than all the new features on 1.3 that will be available on GKE. What other things are we expecting to have?
Yeah, so there's a lot of container engine specifics now. There's things like the new container VM images. So what that is a more secure stripped down image. So since it's stripped down, there's less places for attackers to get at. It comes with auto updates. It's just basically optimized for a container environment.
So before clusters were running, I think it was Debian. So if I fire up a new GKE cluster now, this is going to run this new image, or what? How does that work?
You have to select it.
Okay.
And then I think they're all prefixed GCI, so you can tell the difference when you look. I forget the exact command off the top of my head, but they're prefixed GCI for the ones. And this is in beta, but this is one of those features that I think, again, more security, more better, right?
Yeah.
So this kind of makes me think about basically like unikernels. We had an episode on that not that long ago. So the idea is that you're going to be removing things like FTP and like the services that are actually not related to Kubernetes. Is that the main idea, or?
Yeah, that's the basic idea. So you're saying, what do I need to run containers? What do containers do often? Let's keep that.
Okay.
Let's get rid of the rest.
And if you need those back in, apt-get install could still work, or?
I haven't checked the specific.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what they restrict.
Okay.
That's fair enough. Okay. But at least then, it sort of limits attack vectors for security, makes it easier to update for the Google Cloud team, and probably makes their lives a whole lot easier across the board.
Right. And then it also comes with auto-updating features. So as new security fixes come in, you'll get that updated automatically to your cluster.
Very cool. Cool. What else other than container VM images? I've heard about SSDs. There's a lot of people excited about that. They need more speed.
Yeah, want to go fast. Yeah, so in GKE and GCE, you have local SSDs, so you can use those now. They just go a lot faster.
There's not a lot to say. You just get SSDs. It's good.
It's all good there.
Yeah, I'm imagining that with the pet sets and local SSD, now if you want to run things like big databases on Kubernetes, it will be much faster than before.
So I know we've had a really big push internally around like IAM and like access control. I know there were some new authorization facilities that were in place with Kubernetes. Mm-hmm. Is that been extended to IAM now as well?
Right. So they added role-based access, or RBAC. And now with IAM and GKE, what you get is all the API calls. Now you can say, okay, who has access to do this? Who can start up a new pod? Who can delete stuff? So that's supported in GKE now. What IAM is identity and access management.
So that's really cool. I mean, when you're running a really large team, especially if you have a really large cluster, you want to have control over who can do what within that cluster. Mm-hmm. I think that sounds really, really powerful and really useful.
Well, so the coolest thing about IAM is that instead of like role-based stuff where you say, I have an admin and admin can do everything. I have a user, he can do 3 things. Now you can get a lot more granular. So I can say, Mark can create clusters, Francesc can delete them, and me, Carter, I can do everything.
Yeah. That doesn't make sense. I wouldn't want to have the power to delete clusters. That sounds scary.
A lot of responsibility.
It's a lot of I don't need that ton of responsibility in my life.
So also related to this, when you say role-based access, we talked about people, but is it also a good practice, like security practice, to say, like this instance or these kind of instances have access to this part of the API, but not others? Or is that something that you've seen?
I haven't seen it. So I don't want to comment on best practices for security. I know that you can set up service accounts and say who can access what.
Cool.
And so someone in your organization would set that up.
Nice.
All right. I know you were getting quite excited about node pools.
Yes. Okay. I really like node pools. So what node pools are is kind of like cluster federation light. So one of the things you can have, instead of having different clusters, here you can have different node pools that can be replicated across zones. So with cluster federation, like we talked about last week, you could have clusters in different regions like Asia, Europe, US. You could also have them across different cloud providers like AWS, GCP, or even on-prem like OpenStack. Here, what you're going to get is something replicated across zones. So if you're worried that a zone might fail, so it's lightweight. It's not the same as cluster federation. Mm-hmm. But what you can also do is have different types of nodes in your cluster. So I could say, maybe I have a database and I want 200 gigabyte machine for it to sit on. So I could eat up that data. But my front end application or my server app only needs like a 10 gig, pretty small instance. So now I can do that. And that's very powerful.
And I take it you've got control there as well in terms of where your pods end up sitting within that node pool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's affinity, and you can also use selectors. So you could say basically when you use node pools, like, you get a label attached to the node, to the actual machine, and you can use that in your pod to select which one it's going to sit on.
No, that sounds super useful, being able to like specifically say, hey, this container should be on this type of thing. Now, to play devil's advocate a little bit, does that go against the idea of cattle versus pets, or is that still in the same cattle category?
I think when you have persistent data, you no longer have cattle, because data matters. Data isn't stateless, right? So maybe the whole idea of persistent data goes against cattle.
Okay. Was there something to consider when dealing with node pools and how you structure stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah. There are pros and cons.
Yeah, I wonder if having node pools plus having local SSDs is something that can make it like you can say, it's like all my web servers are going to be running on like the light nodes, but then I have the nodes with local SSD that are going to be running whatever etcd or whatever database you want to use. It sounds like a good thing to have.
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect use case.
Yeah. Nice. Something else related also to nodes, not node pools. It is node autoscaling.
Yes.
I've seen this many times before, and it was like you need to write your own autoscaler. It was quite hard. It seems like we fixed that, and we have it now as a part of Kubernetes, part of GKE.
GKE, yeah, and GCE. So basically now, there was already horizontal pod autoscaling. So if you used up too many resources on pods, you could scale up a pod. That was built into Kubernetes.
What is, for our listeners, what is horizontal scaling versus vertical scaling?
Good question. So horizontal scaling is scaling up more instances of your application, whereas vertical scaling is scaling up more resources for your instances to live on. So now in GKE, what you get is vertical auto scaling. So we can say, I have this pod that I can't schedule right now because there's not enough space for it. GKE is smart enough, or compute is smart enough to go and look and say, if I were to add another node, could I schedule this pod? And if so, then schedule it.
Nice.
And so there's a few use cases for this, actually. If you think about it, take a CI service, continuous integration. It's going to be really busy Monday through Friday if you're not one of those companies that's making people work all weekend. And it's going to wind down on the weekend. So why waste money having all these resources up over the weekend?
Yeah.
You can have your nodes scale up while everyone's in there working, and then over the weekend wind back down, save you money.
Yeah, that sounds like very, very good use of your money. I'm wondering, how does this work with, again, stateful apps?
Okay. Yeah, I know there's some things that are still getting ironed out. Like we just talked about node affinity or using node selectors.
Yeah.
Well, so if I add a label or a few other kubectl commands to a node, that's not going to get replicated when I scale up a pod or not. So if you're using that to say, I want my node to sit on this pod because it's SSD and I want it to go fast and in this stateful reason, that's not going to work.
I suppose that makes sense too. Like if you're like auto scaling, at least right now, especially like if you're auto scaling out a cluster, it's for mostly stateless apps. I mean, that's the stuff you really want to grow and shrink.
Yeah.
It's not for stuff that's like growing and shrinking a database in real time makes me really scared.
Yeah.
Are there people that grow and shrink databases?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you can. Like, I know that for Bigtable, you can totally do that. It is not auto-scaling, though. But you need to be quite careful, because if you have, like, your data is replicated on 3 nodes, and it needs to be replicated on 3 nodes, and you turn down, like, all of those 3 nodes that happen to have one single key, then you lose data, which is bad. So I'm sure you can do it, but you need to be really careful, I guess.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that'll be like, okay, I'm happy doing this on a manual way, but I don't know if I want like a machine doing it. At least not yet.
Yeah. So what are your what is your advice for people that would like to run maybe like some let's say something typical like WordPress, and you have like the front end and then you have the database? Where could you put the database? Like I could personally avoid putting in containers, but I don't use containers all the time. What is your opinion on that?
I think if I could host a database, I would. That's just my most candid opinion. As in, I'd use like a MySQL service or something like that that's hosted instead of putting it in a container. But with the new features in Kubernetes, I think we're going to see a lot more experimentation, a lot more people trying it out. So maybe new best practices are going to emerge.
Okay.
So maybe the tooling's not quite there yet, but as people start to play with it, it'll get there at a certain point.
Right. Yeah, we talked about the 1,000 node Cassandra demo. And again, it's a demo. So we didn't see it in production. We didn't see how long it would last. But that's really exciting to me. Because if you can scale up and scale it down like that with Kubernetes, that's almost like using a hosted service. So I don't know if it's a release away or if it's ready right now. I want to go play in after this and check it out.
Actually, combining that with stuff like what's the package manager for Kubernetes called these days?
Helm?
Is it Helm? It's changed names about 3 or 4 times, I think. But being able to sit around and say, hey, I want Cassandra. Boom. I want a MongoDB replica set. Boom. The combination of that and those two things, I think that is quite powerful.
Yeah. And so, again, Kubernetes is supposed to be a pluggable framework like that. So I could see that happening in the future. Exciting time to be working on Kubernetes.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really fancy new things going around, but I feel like there's also many of our listeners that are still curious about, okay, so I've never used Kubernetes. Where do I get started?
Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot, especially like going to conferences and giving talks.
Yeah.
There's always a big crowd of people that are like, yo, we want to know more. To that end, Kelsey and I made a course, Udacity Scalable Microservices with Kubernetes. It goes over everything from, okay, I have an application. How do I package and distribute that in a Docker image? What are some best practices for that? Mm-hmm. So we talk about things like 12-factor, the microservices pattern, which is the most overused term in all of tech, containers. We talk about the basics of Kubernetes, like deployment, services, health and monitoring, secrets, and all that. And then we get a little bit more advanced and talk about deployment patterns and rolling updates and things like that. So that would be my first choice. I'm a little biased there,
That's fair enough.
We've got interviews with really intelligent people like Adrian Cockcroft, former cloud architect of Netflix. And he talks about the pet versus cattle divide a little bit as well, and the importance of infrastructure, why you'd use it, when to write your own, if ever, things like that.
That sounds really cool. Does it cover any of the cluster setup side of things? Or
No,
it's for an application developers.
Right. And so that's one of the things I'm learning is in this role, I'm a DPE, so my role is being customer zero. And so I've got to stop using GKE and things like that. I've got to start doing Kubernetes the hard way, right?
Yeah, it makes it too easy for you.
Right. So in this course, though, we wanted to make it easy. So what we did is we used Container Engine, which is the easiest way to use Kubernetes. It's pretty much one command line, you're ready to go. And we also use Cloud Shell, which is, what is it? It's a provision VM for you that keeps your dot files. You have a local space on a disk somewhere. It's a standard operating environment. So it's probably the easiest way to get started with Kubernetes is Cloud Shell and Kubernetes in Google Container Engine.
Yeah, that way everything you need is just having browser. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was a pretty nice, pretty clean setup. We did miss there's a few things in the course that if we were doing a Kubernetes 201, we would do like, more production use cases, stateful applications, namespaces, automatic integration with the CI tool, continuous integration, continuous deployment. So, but yeah, if you want to get started, that course is the easiest, quickest way to do it. It's a free course, Udacity and Google.
Is that a teaser that you're actually going to do, a 201, like an advanced course?
Because we're now excited about it.
Yeah, we're excited about it. I'm on the hook. I really do want to do more advanced workshops. So Vic Iglesias from the solutions team put out a really great solution for using Jenkins and GKE together. So we ran that as a workshop and people loved it. They absolutely ate it up.
I guess if people are looking for that advanced contact, they can throw emails or comments to the episode and we'll make sure to pass them on to Carter.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Cool. So we're kind of running out of time for this episode. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention about Kubernetes or GKE that we had not mentioned in this episode or the previous one?
I guess just to wrap up, Kubernetes makes these claims. It says, plan at scale, never outgrow, and run anywhere. And with 1.3, we're closer to that than ever because you can run anywhere with cluster federation, plan at scale, 2,000 nodes, 60,000 containers, and never outgrow. You can go from, local to basically, again, 2,000 nodes. So Kubernetes is something that you can get started with now, trying it out really easily with GKE and Cloud Shell. And then, take it on-prem and or whatever you really need to do to meet production needs. It's there for you.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thanks so much to Carter for spending not 1, but 2 episodes with us and telling us everything we wanted to know about Kubernetes 1.3 and Container Engine. We're going to go through the question of the week.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, it is also about Kubernetes.
Is it really?
Yeah, shocking, right?
I know.
Yeah, yeah, so I think it comes from you. Why don't you?
Yeah, so this is a question I've heard a lot from a bunch of people using Kubernetes. It's really around how do I do local development with Kubernetes? We talked a little bit about on the podcast as well, like setting up a cluster is a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
There seems to have been some options out there, but there's a few of them. Which one do I choose? What do I do? So if I want to do local development with Kubernetes, how do I do it?
Carter.
Okay, that's a great question. Minikube is the way to go. So what Minikube does is it sets you up a local one node cluster using a VM. So by default, it's VirtualBox, but you can specify different ones. And then you have a lot of the power of Kubernetes. You don't get everything. You don't get ingress controllers. You don't get load balancers. But for most of your like day-to-day use on a single node machine, you can try it out, and then you can take that and just go and run the same thing that you're running locally on a provider.
So I know in previous local versions of Kubernetes, I was limited by the number of pods I could run. Like I couldn't run more than like say one pod of a particular thing. Is that limitation still in place with Minikube, or am I just kind of resource controlled based on how big my VM is more than anything else?
You're limited to the node now. So you have one node.
Okay. So I can run multiples of those containers within that node, and very similar to what I would run at scale, but maybe just slightly smaller.
Mm-hmm. And now Minikube is ongoing. So it's not like the final finished product. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what they're thinking about adding. But again, you don't get like, say, the load balancers or ingress, but you can set up deployments and all the
good stuff.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff. But there's more stuff coming, and they're really like that. That's the one true way of doing local development. Ooh, we have some contention.
Well, no, I always get nervous when you say one true way to do anything.
For now.
Yeah,
now.
That is true.
Especially because Kubernetes wants to be so open. But if I was going to do local development right now, what I've been playing with myself is Minikube.
That's fair.
So thanks again to Carter Morgan to spend with us 2 long episodes on Kubernetes and GKE. And not only that, but also staying to answer the question of the week today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for that.
Yeah, good job.
Minikube's so cool.
Cool. So we're about to finish, but before finishing, I would like to remind our listeners on how they can send us cool things of the week, or if they have any other questions or proposals for topics. We're also very interested in that.
Yep. So if they want to reach us by email, where can they reach us?
It is hello@gcppodcast.com.
Our website is?
It is either gcppodcast.com or cloud.google.com/podcast.
Nice. They want to speak to us on Reddit?
It is on the subreddit r/GCPPodcast.
Excellent. If they want to reach us on Twitter?
It is @GCPPodcast.
Yep. If they want to reach us on Google+?
It is plus GCPPodcast.
And the channel name in the GCP Slack community is?
Podcast?
Yes.
There you go. I was not completely sure about that one. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Francesc, thank you again for joining me this week.
Thank you. And talk to you all next week.
See you next week.